Consistent self-improvement, everybody. You are now listening to American gypC podcast. I am your host, Classic, and I am here with my co-host,
gypC. And today we have special guest Shaun Banks, or SF Banks, from Atlanta, Georgia. Welcome to the show.
Nice having you here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, just want to go ahead and get started and kind of ask. For me, I'm doing it a little different this show. I hope that's cool with you. But I just want to ask, and get to know you a little bit more. So tell us, for the listeners and
Absolutely.
even for myself, where you from, and what was your childhood like coming up a little bit, that led you to
Uh,
where you are now?
well, I'm in Atlanta now. Been here for a little over 20 years. And no, that's wrong. I've been here for, oh man, I'm older than I think I am. I've
We
been here
understand.
for, yeah, man, no, I've been here since, let's see here, 92. So that's right, about 30 years. And originally from Seattle, Washington. And growing up was great. I mean, I had a great childhood growing up. I mean, I remember, for example, I remember what life was like before crack hit the inner city,
Wow.
and I saw the change of what it was like after it hit the inner city. So, put it in perspective, before crack hit, because I obviously grew up in the '80s. Before crack hit, you can go outside, and before street lights came on, there was people on the stoops playing music, and it wasn't a problem. Everything was really cool. I mean, it would be a lot of kids outside playing. I mean, we lived in the hood. It was nice, and then right around the time crack hit, man, everything changed. For example, the person that was the butcher at the local store, all of a sudden was the same person that was breaking into your car, breaking into your house, or was a zombie walking down the street because they
Man.
got hooked on drugs. And so, even though it was a tumultuous time for a lot of people in the community because it was a shockwave, but overall, I mean, it was a great childhood. Things could have been worse. I mean, just perspective wise.
And this was in, you say, Cincinnati?
This is Seattle,
Seattle.
Washington.
I don't know why Cincinnati
Yeah,
popped up there.
yeah. Oh, that's all right.
Things
Yeah,
like
this
that.
is Seattle, Washington,
Seattle.
man.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
So how old were you when you got to Atlanta?
When I got to Atlanta, I was about 12.
Okay, your family moved there, I'm guessing, at that
Yeah,
age. Okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah.
So what
Mom
you
made a
think about
move, and
Atlanta, man?
I think Atlanta's great, man. I mean, it's like any city, man. It's what you make it. You know what I mean? It has its good parts and it has its challenging sides as well. But I think overall the city is great. There's a lot of opportunity in Atlanta for people that want to go after it and make it happen. I mean, like with any city, it has its good sides and it has its sides that need a lot of improvement. Crime could be worked on, but we wish crime could be better everywhere. So,
Everywhere, man.
yeah. But
Yeah.
overall, it's good. Yeah.
So back then, when you went to Atlanta and the transition from Seattle to
Uh-huh.
Atlanta, was it the same kind of environment more, or was it different? What was the shock then? What do you remember? What it was like when you were that age, and what did you think?
When I first got to Atlanta,
Yeah,
oh man, when I
coming from
first got
Atlanta.
to Atlanta, it was all right. So when I first got to Atlanta, Outkast was out. It was right before TLC, right around that time. The Face was big.
Okay,
It was a lot of black love. It was the music scene was just blowing up. I mean, it's Babyface, and I mean all these different rappers, Goody Mob, and that was what I came into. At the same time, it was a huge culture shock for me because even though there are, there's a decent amount of black people in Seattle, but not like Atlanta.
right.
And so going to school was definitely a culture shock because just seeing so many just black kids and black people for me was like wow, like it was shocking, but it was awesome. It was an awesome thing to see. I mean, to have principals in your school and teachers that look like you and doctors and engineers and chiropractors and the garbage man, just all these people look like you, and so it was very inspiring.
Definitely, I can relate. I'm originally from Mississippi, and we lived in
Oh
Marietta
yeah.
for about 7 years. That's actually where we met.
From where
Yeah,
you met? Where?
Marietta. Well,
Marietta.
in
Oh,
Georgia,
okay, yeah.
basically.
So you
Yeah,
know about, I know where Marietta is. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, you
yeah.
know
So
about it. Okay, you from Mississippi. What part?
yeah, I was born in Oxford, raised in Jackson.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
so
right.
I can,
Yeah,
I definitely, like I said, I can relate to
absolutely.
elementary having a black principal and having, just everybody was
Yeah.
black. Yeah.
I noticed you had
Awesome.
a couple of programs working with kids. What inspired you to do that?
Well, it's interesting because originally I never wanted to work with kids. I had have any passion at all to work with youth. I couldn't stand kids. And I'm being for real. I
Hey,
didn't
I
want to work with
understand.
kids. Yeah, I mean, it just wasn't anything I was really interested in. And really what started changing was, I saw there was a really big need that wasn't being filled. There were I started out teaching self defense to women and children, and the reason why I did that was at the time it was about 2008 when I really got into doing it heavy, and the market had changed, real estate market had changed. I was in finance at the time, and had always been in martial arts since I was a kid. It was something my mom did
Nice.
to keep us busy. I mean, it was, you're gonna go do something. And so, a buddy of mine said, "Hey, look, man, let's go and start teaching these classes." And I was like, "All right, cool." And it was at that time I realized that I was actually fulfilling a passion that I had, a goal to be able to do something in my aunt and my cousin's honor. They were murdered in a domestic violence situation, and I always wanted to do something for them. And so that's kind of what kind of spurred me in that direction. And then from there was just such a big need that wasn't being met for kids, and there was kids of all colors that just lacking confidence, lacking focus, discipline. They didn't really have any major goals. That just they could be in a much better place, and these were kids in all socioeconomic backgrounds. It wasn't just kids in the inner city. I mean, these are kids in private schools and things like that. And I said, okay, well, there's things we could do. So then we opened up, Camp Warrior King to be able to give kids personal development, give them exposure to activities they normally wouldn't experience during the school year. And then from there is where, you can have it all conferences and the magazine and the products and things.
Yeah, I grew up in the orchestra, so I kind of understand the teaching aspect or the working with kids thing. So
Absolutely.
it's something that I'm better at it in the general public, more like when I was doing the street performing thing.
Yeah.
But the challenge of being a teacher is something that I haven't mentally been able to really visualize myself doing. So
Gotcha.
it's definitely hats off to you for making that transition, or even just to fight that
Right.
not being able, or not really having a drive to work with kids. Because yeah, it's a definitely a different ball game. What are some of the things that
Stuff.
when you first started, what are like the tiptoe day-to-day challenges that kind of help you to get past the you know to get move past that centered feeling of, I don't want to work with kids, so I'm not interested in working with kids, or you know I move around
Yeah.
that versus
Yeah, yeah. It,
you're
it
in
took
the
a
moment.
while. I mean, because for a while it was something that I still didn't want to do. But what started happening really is, doors started closing on one side, and the doors kept opening over on this side. And so, it's like common sense. You're gonna go where the doors keep opening if you want to, be able to keep being able to pay your bills and make things happen. And so it wasn't something that I was initially like, yeah, this is great. I want to go ahead and do this. It was like, no, can I can I work a deal out? Or something else I can do? But when I realized that I could actually become free from doing it and not have to, rely on someone else to put food on my table, that I could be able to make it happen for myself. That was when I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is better. And I had to do a lot of training. Like, I had to read a lot, I had to study a lot, I had to get better because I wasn't good at it, and I had to really work hard at that. And I had to fight through the fears that were there. That, how do I teach these kids? How do I run a camp? How do I build all this stuff? Because I didn't have those skills. I didn't have that skill set at all. I was in something totally different. I had skills, right? I had knowledge to
Right.
do things, but not specific to working with youth. And so I had to learn how to do that and fight through the fears and get it done.
That's dope, man.
And I'm kind of trying
Right.
to
Okay.
look.
So I guess I hit a blank. I didn't want to keep drilling you on the kids thing, on the
Oh, you
teaching
all right,
thing.
man? We roll. You
And then I
good?
didn't want to keep going back to Atlanta, but I kind of do still want to go back to Atlanta. You've been there for a
That's
long
fine.
time.
Yeah,
So I'm a musician myself. Like I said, did the whole, as far as
yeah,
hip hop producing thing. I just
yeah.
recently took a break from it. Atlanta is, of course, it's one of a kind when you're doing it as far as culture and business.
Yeah.
And man, like I said, I remember just being there. You got black everything, you know.
Right.
What is something from those kids that come from, like you say, the worst neighborhood or the bad neighborhoods from any part of, I guess the United States? What are some of the, I guess I can't, because it's not as easy as, I guess I'm kind of stuck on the question, but forgive me on that.
Are you all right?
I don't want to ask just a regular question from what is the regular motivation, because you can't really answer that. What is, some of the tips and things you can give the average youth or anything like that? But what are some of the key tips that we're looking at, from what we have to, from cryptocurrency, from just something outside of the norm of football,
Mm-hmm.
basketball? I guess you could even
Right.
say where we at now, doctor wise,
Mm-hmm.
it's a risky career wise. But
Sure.
what are some of the things that you can inspire a kid? You might not know nothing about it,
Mm-hmm.
but it's outside of the realm of
The normal
what
stuff
the
that they're
normal
doing.
stuff. Yeah, just like whether if music wise, yeah, man, you promote your music, buy your you record music, do the same little cycle.
Right.
What is something that's outside of the box that they're not telling kids these days, even just coming up in the school,
Oh
that are
wow,
some
that's a great question
very
actually.
strong,
Yeah, yeah, it's a
tools?
great question that you ask, and something that a lot of parents need to pay attention to. So, what one of the biggest things that kids need to be focusing on, and they you hear it, but they're not hearing it enough, and I'll dive into it. Uh, is children in the inner city, in particular, specifically Black children, need to focus on getting into tech. They're not focused on technology enough. And the reason why is because all of the jobs, especially right now, are being siphoned out, right?
Mhm.
Because the especially jobs that are considered just you know your clerk jobs, so for example, you can go to a racetrack gas station right now in Atlanta, walk in there, and there's nobody that's going to check you out. There's a
Really?
machine. You can get your soda, you can check everything out yourself, go get your gas, walk out the door, or order your food. The food's going to pop out, and there's no clerk, there's no attendant.
Mm.
You can I just came from the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas a couple weeks ago, and it was an eye-opening thing because there's so much technology coming out that's going to make jobs obsolete, and so many kids are not even paying attention to it because their parents aren't pointing them into that direction. So, for example, of course, you've heard about autonomous trucks, but it's another thing to see one, to actually see this whole big rig that looks like Optimus Prime, like just sitting there, and it's going to be driving down the street, delivering your food and your goods and services. Like, yeah, you got all these Amazon drivers right now, but in the next 5 to 10 years, well, one of the trucks that I saw will be out in 4 years,
Mm.
right? It's here. A huge industry for kids. If there's any kid that is anywhere between middle school, high school, wants to go to college or doesn't want to go to college and wants to go to trade school, uh, where I would point them to, or one place I'll point them to would be to learn how to fly drones. This is why. By the year 2025, now it's 2022, by 2025, they're going to need over 100,000 people to fill job positions in flying drones for everyday things. That is, you can look it up online. You go to
Wow,
Dragonfly, you can
that's
check it out on Dragonfly. We did an article in our magazine on Dragonfly, and we're talking about where they're going to be flying drones to do surveillance, flying drones to put out fires and to show them where the fires are, to fly back and forth to oil rigs for medicine, for war, shipping goods and services. And each job requires a different niche. So let's say I'm into flying one for like firefighters, right?
Right.
And you're in the one for flying like oil rigs, and then you're in one for flying let's just say medical services. Each one of those is a different skill set. So I can't fly your rig, she can't fly
Mm.
my rig. It's a different skill set. 100,000 jobs in the next 3 years, right?
Wow.
And they're going to fill those jobs. The thing is that are they going to fill those jobs with kids coming out of the United States or from somewhere else around the world? Here's one more for you. I was talking to someone, I was out there, and she said that in the state of Washington, actually in Seattle, they have one of the largest job opportunity markets in the United States. They're like number one for it, for
Mm.
tech, but they're like bottom of the barrel for people to fill them. So there's a huge need for technology, and the thing is that kids just got to be creative and get out there, and they're just being inundated with a whole lot of other things. But that's something they could be doing for real. Then they can own a basketball team and play for it, and then go fly a drone or something. I don't know.
Those are definitely great tips. I, for one, I'm in the technology space, and um, to add to what you said earlier, it's the technology space. It's such a wide. It's like, being in the healthcare industry. That's such a wide variety of things you can do, and people don't
Right,
understand that. You can be creative in the technology space. You can be working with numbers and finance in the technology space. You can be more of like a manager, a project manager in the technology space. You can be like, you can transfer a lot of your skills that you have in whatever you're doing now into the technology space where
right.
the industry is flourishing, and there's a lot more jobs, new jobs. The last one you mentioned, the drone thing, I didn't even know about about that, really. Like,
Yeah, I
how
didn't know
I just
either.
didn't think about how big of an industry that is going to be. Even Amazon is going to start delivering with drones and things like that. So that's really great tips
Well, they-
on that.
they're already doing it. Is the
Yeah.
thing. They're already, for example, like I said, we did an article on Cameron Shell, and Cameron Shell is a gentleman who, so he did a couple things. The first company that he had created the cloud, right? So the actual cloud we use for our computers and all that, blah blah blah, for pictures. His company created it. Then the second thing that he did that was really big is he put the first set of cameras on the International Space Station. And so
Mm.
now he's over this company, and and he's doing tremendous things with it. And he has a really big heart. So they have, for example, a program at Alabama State. I was going to say A&M, but it's state. They have a program down in Alabama State. They just opened another program at Alabama A&M for drone flying, for like simulators and stuff,
Mhm.
because the one at A&M is over there by uh, I said like it's down the street, huh? Over there by
We understand
near
though.
the NASA museum and the stuff over there,
Mhm.
and the they are responsible. Dragonfly is responsible for having the first drone that ever saved a human life in a search and rescue mission. They couldn't get the helicopters in there to find the person that was lost. So Dragonfly has this technology where they like heat sensor, where they can find. And so they found the body, or found the person who was still alive, actually, based on their heat.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know, like heat seeking or whatever.
Yeah.
And so that drone is actually sitting in the Smithsonian in Washington D.C. And the Drone Flying League, where they're actually racing drones and like for competition, it's like VR. And I mean, if you type in Drone Flying League, it's gonna pop up. They have simulators and everything where you can, and it's like VR glasses on, and these guys are flying these drones through stadiums and all this stuff, like racing drones, like they're racing cars, and they're flying and doing loops and doing all this stuff, and it's crazy. And it's a whole different league, and it's super fun. And those are things that kids can get into, right? And they just
Yeah.
need to know about it, know it's there. And
Yeah.
let me tell you this: there's one last thing about Cameron. It's really important.
Mm.
Is that he did not he didn't graduate from college.
Mm.
He didn't have a master's in technology. But he's been the head of all these different companies, right? And he's out of Canada, right? He's from Canada. He has one of the top TED talks ever, and his story is great. You should check it out. And the reason why we're talking about, I just think that that's a story that a lot of people can relate to. Like, man, you don't have to go to MIT. You don't have to be this super smart techie person. You can have the will and the dream, and you can make it happen.
Yeah. You can build a team to make it happen.
There you go.
Yeah.
Um, I know we talked about what they should get into, but working with kids, what are some trends you're seeing in terms of interests in career paths?
For
Yeah,
for kids,
like
um, well, the interest that we're seeing from a lot of kids is pretty much the same stuff, right? I mean, you have kids that are interested in, they're getting more interested in, uh, of course, cryptocurrency is a big thing now as kids are starting to get into it and understand it, NFTs, things like that. But a lot of the schools uh, could be doing a better job of promoting kids to have a broader scope of what's possible, especially
Mhm.
kids in the inner city. I mean, there's the world's their oyster. They have access to the internet, but you still have some of the same careers that kids talk about: being a doctor, being a lawyer,
Yeah.
doing these same things. But there are so many other opportunities they can really get into. So I think it's pretty much the same.
What's your experience like with traveling, and how important do you think traveling is for youth?
I think that travel is critical for youth. I think that it's critical in so many levels. One, because it's all about exposure, and when a child's mind is exposed to something positive or exposed to different parts of the world and seeing different things in the world, then they have a broader scope of what's possible. They get to see that there's beauty all around the world. That especially when you go outside of the United States, we don't realize how isolated we are. So, when you travel to different places like, Japan or Africa or Europe or Spain, all these different places, and you realize that, okay, man, these places are really cool. They have a lot to offer. And you decide like, man, I may not want to live in the United States. I might want to live in China. I might want to live in Malaysia. I might want to live somewhere else where I can, that's my vibe, right?
Yeah.
It's like a good
Mhm.
place to be. And I think it's critical for kids. And it's part of the reason why we're doing what we're doing with the youth magazine is pretty much making the world smaller by giving them exposure to different places around the world, and so they can realize that people are pretty much the same. Kids are pretty much the same on this side of the globe that they are on the other side. They like to play and have fun, laugh and talk. They don't want to be bullied. They don't want to be talked about. They want to be something cool when they grow up. Some of them don't know what they want to be. Some of them are on, like, for example, in Melbourne, Australia. Some of the kids that have the same issues they have there. Drugs is an issue in Melbourne, just like it is in the United States. But you don't hear that, right? But it's
Mhm.
important for them to hear those kinds of things because then you realize, man, okay, there's issues all over the world. Maybe
Yeah.
I can't solve an issue here in the United States like I could maybe over in Melbourne. Maybe I should move there. Maybe they'll take my idea over there, right? So I think that is great as far as opportunity perspective.
Yeah. What are some of the places you visited, just for our
Oh
listeners?
man, oh man. I've been to Africa. I have a orphanage in Uganda.
Okay.
I've been to Jamaica. I've been in Japan, Trinidad. I've been to Europe. I've been to Canada. I've been down South America. I've traveled a lot.
That's nice. Nice.
Yeah.
What's one of your favorites? Or what would be your top three?
Uh, Man, Africa. Africa, and Africa would be the top three, for
How did you
sure.
get into?
Um,
Oh, go ahead.
hmm?
Sorry, I didn't want to
Oh,
interrupt
oh,
you.
no, I was just saying Africa just because of the the beauty. When you talk about travel, um, Africa is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful place. The nature and the wildlife and the people, and to see the people and to see people on the other side of the world that look like you and it looks like Atlanta, right? But it's a lot more people, right? When
Yeah.
you see people that look like friends, it's like, oh
Mhm.
man, he looked like Earl, he just looked like somebody you grew
Yeah.
up in the hood with, and it's cool. But when you talk to them, they speak a totally different language, or and the kids over there might speak three, four, five different dialects, and and so that's really cool. Japan is beautiful. It's really, really beautiful. The culture. I think that any Asian country is beautiful. They have such a rich culture and they've been around for so long, just like countries in Africa. And it's important to travel and see that. When you go to those places, you definitely say, I mean, I got to come back here. I got to see it again. You get a different perspective on the United States. You get a different perspective on people. Um, because one of the things you see is you see people with you know a lot less of the things, right? Like all this stuff, but they seem a lot happier
Mm.
without all the stuff.
Have you advised I guess the kids to all of them to get a passport?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. One of the things that we're working on, well, before COVID, was starting to do some international travel with the kids we have in our program. Of course, just getting their parents and like, let's just go to some of these places because it's important. Like it's important to see, see a different, they need to see a car driving on a different side of the road. They need to see
Yeah.
or hear different languages, try different food, right? Some foods in certain areas don't have as much salt, don't have as much sugar, right? It tastes different, but it's really, really good. They need to see everything.
How
Right.
did you get into working with the orphanage in Uganda?
So we've been doing conferences. You can have it all youth conferences, and we did a conference there. As to how it started, and in the conference there was a gentleman who actually the person that invited me to come uh, and do the conference. I had an orphanage that was struggling, and they weren't going to be able to keep the orphanage open. There wasn't a lot of support, and he was like, "Okay, what can we do about that?" And we decided to, take the orphanage on and, pretty much take over the orphanage and support it and run it, and be able to take care of the kids. So it's not, I mean, we have about 30 kids there. It's a pretty modest size, orphanage, which is, allows us to be able to figure out really what we're doing and how to be able to take care of the kids and, be able to scale it from there, to be able to provide support because we take care of, pretty much everything from, school, because school costs like any school. It costs money to go to school. It's not free like how it is here. So kids really value school. So going to school, food, shelter, clothing, I mean, everything, we take care of. And so that's how it happened was, man, we got to do something. What struck me, what hit my heart was, so we're driving down the street, getting ready to go. And I was getting ready to speak at the crusade and conference again. And there was a cardboard box on the street, and there were little feet in the box. And I'm like, wait a minute, like that's not a grown man feet. You used to seeing grown people homeless. It's not a good thing, but you're used to
Mm.
seeing that more in the United States. You're not used to seeing children. And
Right.
so then it's like, man, wait a minute, it's a whole bunch of little feet in cardboard boxes down here. And there was a ton of child homelessness. And so to see children, I'm talking like 7, 8, 9, 10, years old, homeless on the street, right, is it's a terrible thing that happens, but it's because of wars and things going on, and these
Mm.
kids don't have any parents, and there's nobody feeding them. There's no soup kitchens. There's no food banks where they can eat. These kids are eating out the trash can. And the gentleman that invited me to come, he used to be a homeless child, and he was telling me about stories of things that he had gone through. When we wanted to try to feed the kids, we had to try to get permission to be able to feed them because you can't just do it. And then when you do feed them, you have to give every single child food. If not, they'll fight over it. So it's one thing to see kids fight because somebody called them a punk or pushed them or did something. It's another thing to see children fighting over food, right? Because you imagine how you would fight if you were hungry, right? That's very violent. So when you see kids fighting like that, man, it's like, man, we got to do something about that. And so that's what they did for me. That's what I mean. It's like I don't care what it takes. I believe in a higher power, and we'll make it happen that way. And so that's what we did,
That's awesome.
Grateful for you, bro.
Yeah.
sir.
So
Yeah.
I guess the next question. I'm a UFC fan.
Okay.
So when did you get into mixed martial arts? And what's your background with that? I'm not
Yeah.
I'm not into mixed martial arts. I tickled
Uh-huh.
on it
Yeah.
growing up. I did more orchestra stuff, but
Yeah,
I've always loved the sport. It took me a little time to get
sure,
into it, but
sure,
I like to
sure.
watch it. But
Gotcha,
yeah,
gotcha. Now I've been in martial arts since I was 6. My mother put me in martial arts. The first art I studied was Taekwondo at the Boys and Girls Club in Seattle, Washington.
okay.
And from there, I just fell in love with it. It was like, as a kid, I mean, I wanted to be like, a GI Joe, like Snake Eyes or Power Ranger or whatever. And so that's what got me into it. And then you realize that it's none of that. You're not gonna be flying and flipping through the air and doing all that. It actually takes discipline and work. And
Yeah,
so then I just got into studying different arts. So I studied Taekwondo, I studied Kung Fu. Actually, I studied Hungar Kung Fu as a
yeah,
kid. Matter of fact, the first amount of money I earned from this job I had as a little kid, uh, I took it all and spent it at this martial arts store, buying like ninja stars and stuff. I can't believe my parents let me do it, but they did. But I had earned the money. I had earned the money, man. So they let me do that. And then from there, I studied ninjutsu, I studied hapkido, I studied hankido, I studied Krav Maga. I've studied a lot of different
nice.
arts. And I tell you, UFC is not my thing. I admire the guys that get in the cage and do that.
Same.
Uh, but I that is not my bag, man. And I definitely believe that you gotta know your limits and know what you good at doing and what you want to do and what you're not. And
Trust me.
I'm like, yeah, nah, nah, that's
Trust
not my
me.
thing at
I
all.
understand. It's even some
I'm
things
like,
I mentally want to do. Of course I want to,
yeah,
at least be in shape to be able to
right,
do it and know the basics of it. But
yeah,
it's still the grappling thing, man. It is still like, hold on, let me
yeah,
start here. When you got him
right,
like this, and I'm like, bro, come on, I'm tapping already. I
right. I'm
can't do
tapping
this,
out, right,
man. I can't do this.
right, 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 right.
I know we just training, but man, come on, I
But
can't do that.
man,
You know what I'm
it's and it's like calm down. You gotta get them to calm down. You tapping and they acting like they don't hear you. You're like, bruh, I'm good. It's
But it's the most
um
respect, man. I
uh
got the most respect for them guys, man. And
yeah,
it's a different
yeah.
breed of people that do it. And
It really is. I
you know,
mean, you really gotta. I mean, I watched the documentary on Kimbo Slice and how he started and how he was just like in the
backyard.
backyard, like
Yeah.
just fighting these guys. Just and I was just like, yo, man, like, and they would be telling him like, I'm good, stop, and he would still be like hitting them with them two pieces, wop wop, they like, yo, and he wop wop wop, like. I'm like, hey, all right, so
Yeah,
to each his own, man.
he was a beast, man. Kimbo,
Yeah,
much
he
respect.
was. Yeah.
Rest in peace.
And what's interesting about that is he was a beast all the way up until he got knocked out by a guy that I don't know how much that guy weighed that knocked him out, but he hit him at the right time. And then
Yeah,
after that, it was like the whole mystique was gone after that
but
with Kimbo.
it's a lot of competition as well in
Yeah,
UFC and all of them fighters as well.
yeah,
So it was definitely a step up in a different kind of competition.
absolutely.
I haven't heard anything from that guy that accidentally
That
knocked
did
him out.
that.
Right.
Right, right, right. Where are they now?
Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't tell you the guy's name, but you
Yeah.
know, it was still, like I said, the breed of person who he was, and I've watched
Mm-hmm.
it when he was on the Tough show,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of the things that he mentally went through to make that transition from fighting in the streets to being more professional fighter, and overcoming
Mm-hmm.
some of those demons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a
Wow.
different breed,
Yeah.
man, mentally and
Yeah.
physically. And a
That's
lot of
right.
people don't understand that with the sport. And I've kind of
That's
fell
tough.
off from watching basketball, and I don't really watch football. I have any favorite teams,
Uh-huh.
but I've gotten into contact sports, and I can watch them in a whole lot better than I can watch football or baseball.
Right.
Or, yeah,
Right. I
and it's just
understand.
out of respect, man. And it's just
I understand.
I don't know. I've out of respect for the fighter. I know that each one
Yeah.
of them that's got in that cage has really, you know,
Yeah. And it took
trained
some
and
yeah.
they got some guts at
And
the
it took
same
some
time.
L's. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I think also that mixed martial arts also is kind of a good discipline in future for some. I could say certain states or places. Me personally, from Mississippi, I can look at Mississippi right now, and I could see how in LA, we're here in LA, um,
Mm,
gyms everywhere. It's an expensive
yeah,
place to live. Most fighters can't really spend a lot of money for training, or a lot of that depends. They don't. Some of them don't have
right,
you know money to pay for the gym or the coaches and things like that.
right.
But I feel like in the future, Mississippi would be a good place to grow a good
Mm-hmm.
MMA community, or that type of
Absolutely.
thing. You familiar with Jackson or with
I'm
Mississippi?
familiar. I'm familiar with Jackson. I'm familiar with Mississippi.
Okay.
So when I was in school, we used to go down to Jackson State a lot.
Yeah, I
I
did
was
3 years at Jackson State.
okay. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
at in Alabama, and we would go to school. I mean, we would go down to Jackson State and hang out there. And actually, my father's side of the family is from Shelby, Mississippi,
Okay.
so right up there in the Delta. So my grandfather was a sharecropper, and a lot of so to make extra money, they would have Friday night fish fries and parties and stuff like that. And a lot of the blues players that was on the circuit, like so Bobby Blue Bland, Harlan Wolf,
Yeah.
BB King, all these different guys would go up that circuit and they would stop at my grandfather's house and play and do those parties and stuff. And yeah, so yeah, but that's where all my family's from. So I'm very familiar.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's it's changed a lot since my childhood, and
Hmm.
I don't know when's the last time you were there, but I'm from West Jackson.
Okay.
So West Jackson has kind of declined compared
Hmm.
to the surrounding area, but
Hmm.
there's still also a lot of things that, can be done to in the future. I could say
Sure.
even I can't even speak on the school system and anything like that. But like I said, just from looking at it and looking at potential from for a place where MMA, I feel like MMA gyms and things like that, and they could provide a
We'll
opportunity.
thrive.
Yeah, I think hopefully, and that's something that even the long term goal of mine that I would like to kind of string along and try to pull there or grow there in the city, even though I'm not
Definitely.
into it like that. But yeah,
But you're passionate about it. It's the same thing. It's exactly what we were just talking about
yeah,
with
and it's a
Cam
lot of money
Michelle.
into it. It's a
Yeah.
$1 billion sport, boxing, even
Right.
at least. Yeah. And the
Right.
crime there, I feel like it could help with the crime as well. It's pretty popular for crime. So I feel
Yeah.
like that's also something that, the youth, if you could kind of get the youth into something and kind of find a theme, a new
Hmm.
theme of this city, because they don't have any major teams or anything like that, but just
Right.
the possibility of possibly making a champion, you know,
Right.
and
Right.
to kind of because you got Deion Sanders is doing that. He's made the city Jackson State champions, but
Right. Right. Right.
to kind of
Right.
still grow from there, but to more help and kind of discipline the
Right.
city a lot more.
Right. No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I mean, the potential is great.
Yeah, and I can also relate to the like you said with the ninja stars and stuff. Just going back to Atlanta, where you saying you surprised your parents did that.
Yeah.
We grew up in the orchestra, and we went to Atlanta a lot for orchestra competitions and stuff like that. So uh, we stopped by during a Freaknik one time, and my mom actually had us buy a T-shirt with some girl booties on it.
Yeah.
And that was
Yeah.
one of those thoughts. Like I still can't believe my mom let us buy that shirt, but that's one of the things of Atlanta that people don't will
Yeah.
never understand or never get to experience.
And never get to experience, man. They didn't. Yeah. Yeah. That. Yeah.
Yeah,
They should
like I
have
said,
been
we may
able to
have
see
been
that.
sixth grade, maybe.
Yep. That sounds
It
about
was-
right.
yeah,
That sounds about right. Down at Freaknik, like, man, what you even doing here? It was like, yeah, I'm happy you got to see that. I will never forget
yeah,
Freaknik, ever.
yeah. Um, any? Did you have something? I know I've been talking for a minute. I
No,
want to
you
keep.
good. It's just free flowing.
So, being in Atlanta for as long as you've been,
Mm,
what are some of the big things that you see in Atlanta that you would like to see in other places, or what even just from the unity in the people, or what do you think are some of the strengths that Atlanta has that we need to be able to grow in other communities, even if it was out here in LA? How could we bring the strengths of of Atlanta's unity to a place like Los Angeles?
I think the networking abilities, but I think it's in other cities. I mean, it's the geographically Atlanta is set up where it's a high concentration of black people, which is great. Um, but I think that it's something that's going on in other parts of the country, but just not it's just not as many people. But the ability to network, and to be able to talk to someone that's of your same race about health issues or about business and real estate and all those things are important. I think that it's just a matter of more people getting into those industries and working together. And I think that although Atlanta is a very great city, it still has a lot of improving to do when it comes to that of working together. Because we have a black mayor, we have a lot of people in power that are doing a lot of things, but there's still a lot to be desired for. So I think that what other people are doing in different states, if there's any people in any state or city and they're working together, that is all that's happening in Atlanta, but there's just more people in Atlanta making it happen. I think that Atlanta has a lot to learn from other cities like LA, where people are enterprising and doing and making things happen in the black community. For example, Atlanta, as great of a city as it is and representing black people, need more black grocery stores,
Mm.
right? There's not a black Kroger chain, for example, or a Winn-Dixie, right? There is a lot of the businesses in the black community are not owned by black people. So I don't want to get it twisted. I don't want people to get it twisted to think that Atlanta is a utopia in a sense for black people. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done, and I think that a lot of the people that are coming from outside of Atlanta coming into the city bring those ideas, right? Of somebody coming from New York has a different perspective on business and enterprise, and they come to Atlanta and they thrive and they use that business and enterprise, and that's good. Somebody from LA, same thing. I think that the opportunities in Atlanta are available anywhere else in the country, maybe not at the scale, uh, but there's a lot that needs to be done, and I think that it kind of goes for other communities around the country. Um, the biggest issue, well, there's a lot, but I don't want to say the biggest issue at all, but a major issue is that it's 2022 and there's still a big challenge of black people working together.
Yes.
So you can go to the Hispanic community, you can go to the Korean community, you can go to the Indian community, and I mean like India, Indian, right? And they have they have restaurants, they have jewelry stores, they have grocery stores, they have clothing stores, and they support each other. The dollar is cycling in their community many, many times. The dollar, I mean, I forgot how long there was a scale about how many times the dollar cycles in like an Asian community before it goes out,
Mm.
right? The dollar comes in, the black community goes right back out. You can have a man with a chicken stand having a business, but the people won't go to his chicken stand. They'll go to some corporation's chicken and buy their food and not support the brother that's here that has a business that's trying to put food on his table and trying to give you something healthy. And his is going to cost more because he doesn't have farms of chickens, right? But
Right.
the people won't make the sacrifice. Whereas in other communities, they're going to shop with each other. And so that I think is what could be done all over. And yeah, they're making it look good in Atlanta, as if it's happening, but there's still a lot that can be done. I mean, it's okay, but it could be a lot better.
I'm sure there's a lot of factors that goes into that, but like,
Sure.
what do you think are some of the factors? Why do you think the dollar is going out a lot faster in the black community? Then
Do we have enough time for that? Oh man, do we have enough time for that? Okay. Why do I think that that's happening? I think that there's a ton of reasons why it's happening. And I think that we really uh you have a lot of different thoughts. It's one that we've been bred to be this way, which there's truth in that. There's one that, now we're accountable for where we are, and there's truth in that. And so I think that the the thing is, a lot of it has to do with our perspective of what we value a lot of times. Um, why is it that we will drive 30 miles to go to a restaurant on the other side of town to be able to say that we did it? Or why is it that we, in our music, we talk about how cool it is to wear things or to buy things that we don't own or that aren't owned by black companies? Um, why is it that we listen to music and support and buy the music that talks about the degradation of our women or about killing each other, creating a hostile environment so that if I see another black man, I'm hostile, right? Why are we and I think that it's a lot of layers to that, but a lot of it is that, right? And that begs the question of what came first, the chicken or the egg? Did the music start creating the environment that we're in, or was the environment here and the music just started reflecting it? At one point, the music was reflecting the environment. They were talking about what was going on in the hood to get that out, right? So, for example, NWA, you know, a lot of their music was talking about what was going on. When they were talking about the police, they were talking about what was going on, right? What was happening in the hood, and there wasn't any light being shed on that. Now I don't understand how it's all of a sudden cool to like be on Xanax. Why we rapping about it's cool to be on drugs, or why it's cool to be like, all these things we're saying. That's not
mm,
all of a sudden. And so, if I'm focused on how much I love a product out here that my people don't own, when I see a product that's owned by my people, I'm not necessarily going to support it because I've already devalued it by saying that it's more important to get this stuff out here. And you can't blame any other culture for taking advantage of that. If the other cultures are making their money off the backs of our people, that's our people's fault for allowing that to happen. Then we can say that it's not, but but I can't change another man. I can only change myself. The African proverb says if there's no enemy on the inside, the enemies outside can do us no harm. So if we go just on that right there, which came from our ancestors, if there's no enemy on the inside, the enemies outside can do us no harm, then I think that answers the question, which is we have so many enemies on the inside.
Understood. And I could say, yeah, even as a musician, I've seen my phases of music. So, yeah, I don't vibrate with music the same way. Right now, I could say I'm on a hiatus. I'm a little bit retired from instrumental music and kind of, just studio
Yeah,
stuff altogether because, yeah, it's just, it's a new leaf, I guess. And I
yeah,
couldn't necessarily keep up from even before. Um, the frequency is not the same with music.
right,
Um, and like I said, it's hard to even visualize because you have Compton, like you said, NWA reflecting what they were seeing, and then you have now, like you said, what they're rapping about, and it's being almost like we noticed that it went from reflecting to was still kind of reflecting, but with more in a weaponized way of
right,
also creating a new monster.
I
Or
right,
think there was a change in between, like between NWA and now. Like now, I think there's a strong push by the industry executives and these companies that are molding these artists to push a certain narrative, a certain,
Hmm.
stereotype, so that you can influence the youth in general, because music is one of the most powerful ways. It is a vibration, it's frequency and sound,
Right.
and it does affect people. I mean, there's been a scientist that figured out how to remove some cancers from the body by using certain frequency of sound. So, sound does a lot of different things to people. Changes your vibration. So, I think there's a strong push. It might have started out. The music might have started out reflecting what was in the hood, but I think at some point between then and now, there was like a strong push to only push that narrative. And so, like, people just want to make money when they get a record deal. They sign the deal, and now they're stuck with a certain contract, and they have to output music. And then they output music. They're like, oh, no, we rather have you talk about this kind of stuff and this kind of stuff, and this is what's trending. And
Right. This
So
is
it's,
your
what's
back is
selling.
against the
yeah.
wall as an artist
But
to
I
be
Yeah.
creative
I
or
do
to
like what you
uplift.
said earlier. Like, it is also our responsibility not to let that, not to let the industry or whatever take advantage of us. Because at the end of the day, you have to agree to it. So there's
Right.
that.
Well, I mean, and it's really interesting. I mean, the when so for example, you don't listen to Luther Vandross before you go do a drive by. Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
I mean, can you imagine? They not like do 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 do
Might
do
be a
do do. I mean, they
psychopath out there.
loading up, get ready. I mean, so nobody not doing that. They listen to whatever's going to get them in that mood,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, the accountability at the end of the day, regardless of why it's happening. This is my opinion. Regardless of why it's happening, regardless of who created it, regardless of how it started and what's going on, it ultimately falls on the black community to do something about it, because nobody can change it but us. We if for example the black community was united, right, and we said we're not listening, we don't want this kind of music for our kids, we're not playing it anymore, and there was a boycott on that, and it would be like the industry would say, okay, what do you want? You want to talk about lollipops and rainbows? You want to talk about cars? Because ultimately they don't care what's going to sell.
Yeah.
And so at the point of where it sells, then they listen, and that's what it is. Because everybody, here's the thing, everybody else is not talking about the same thing, right? There
Mhm.
are, I mean, you're an artist, I mean, and a producer and in the music, I mean, you're artists all over the world talking about different topics. I mean, look at
Yeah.
somebody like Imagine Dragon. Their
Yeah.
topics
Different genres.
are different genres, and it's motivational music, and they're like one of the biggest groups on Spotify, right? You look at all these, and so it's just, at what point do we say, all right, we're going to be accountable for what's going on in our community? When you start talking about there are, three and four generations of crackhead users. Okay, grandma was a crackhead, dad was a crackhead, the child is a crackhead.
Mm.
That's a very powerful thing. I'm talking about real life stuff, people I know, like situations where it's just generational,
Wow.
Wow.
right? At what point, how do you, so our question then becomes, how did this person start using crack when you saw, right? So it's breaking those generational curses and things that we know how it got here. We know we didn't put it in here. We know we didn't create it. We know that the laws are slanted to get us in prison if we sell it. Okay, then why is it that we're still allowing all this to happen in our community? And so that makes it very difficult. But when the enemy's on the inside, if he can't eat, if he don't sell me dope, or if he thinks he can't eat if he don't sell me dope, then he's gonna sell me dope so he can eat. Or if he has a felony, right, or somebody got a felony and they can't get a job, and it's like, well, what am I going to do? Yeah, it's very hard to do what we're doing out here, to be positive and create a business and have to struggle and have to do all that. Everybody's not built for it tough. So they say, oh, okay, well, man, I could rob somebody and make this money. It was easy to do it. I could listen to the music. It gets me excited about doing it. Now, all of a sudden, I'm justified in doing it. Now, my favorite rapper is saying he did it. And look at where he is now. And the kid is uneducated. He's like, man, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna rise to the top. He go outside, he gets shot.
Yeah.
Now it's a cycle starts all over again.
Even I grew up in the church. I'm more spiritual than religious.
Hmm.
Most, like I said, in most hoods, you have churches in the neighborhoods.
Yeah.
What do you think is, the impact of some of the recycled things that's going on in the black community? Do you have it? You think that it goes along with the brainwash of certain things that happen in the church or the repeated tradition that's in the church?
I think that right now, a large group of the churches in the black community are doing the black community a disservice. And the reason why I feel that way is because they're not doing enough to serve the children and the people in their community. You got big tabernacles of churches, but the people on the outside are starving. There's a church on every single corner in some black communities, yet the people are out there starving. The church is the pillar of the black community. It was. I mean, during the civil rights movement, people met in the church. People go to church to get fed. People went to the church to get healed. All of a sudden, something happened. So because there's no way, right? Because God is real. God is a healer. God is an anointer. He's a protector, right?
Mhm.
God is real, right? To
Yes.
me. And we've seen God move in our lives. However we call him, whatever name, the name is irrelevant, right? There's no way that God could be just one way and there's people all around the world. Part of the reason why it's important for children to travel and to go around the world, because when you go around the world, you see God everywhere. You see him everywhere. You see him in buildings. You see him in mountains and trees and bugs and different stuff. You see God's footprint everywhere around the world. But something has happened in the city, especially in the black community, when it comes to the black church, because the black church has lost its impact and its power. One of the biggest things that has happened when you talk about the youth is they talk about how hypocritical the black church is, how hypocritical they are. That a kid, young adults will walk into the black church and be judged to the point that they don't want to go there anymore because they're being talked about for what they're wearing, about their sexual
Mhm.
orientation, about all these different things, instead of talking about God's grace, where God loved them regardless of who they are and meeting them at their level. So then all of a sudden the kids is like, well, man, I don't want to come here. They beat me over the head with all this stuff. This man talking about living this certain way, and I see him over here doing XYZ. Right. So the black church lost a lot of credibility. And so instead of just acquiescing and being like, okay, yeah, we got a lot of things wrong, but let's try to get it right and go out and get the youth, what has happened is that now they're against the youth. They don't even want the youth in their buildings. And the way that black church, any church thrives is from the youth. If you don't have youth in your church will die
Mhm.
because you got to raise a child up in the way that they should go. So they start being raised up in the church, knowing how to live and how to function, and then they carry that tradition on. But if you're not getting them in your doors because you're not going out and ministering to them and meeting them on their level and trying to build them up, all of a sudden you don't have a congregation. And so now what a church was designed to do, which was to heal people and get them back out to minister to other people, isn't happening.
Do you think that we'll eventually get past looking up to celebrities for to make change for us or for different things like that? Do you think we'll ever
Uh,
get past it? Or, if you're
I
not
hope so.
rich, if you're not rich, we can't listen to you. Or if you're not a celebrity, it doesn't matter. And you
I
think
hope
we'll
so.
okay.
I hope so because it's something else that's doing a disservice. I mean, but you know, we see the people on the reality TV, and at the end of the day, it comes down to parenting at home, right? So if the kids don't have an example at home of who to watch and who to emulate, then they're going to find somebody to emulate. Right? It's about that idle mind as a devil's playground. You're not paying attention to nothing else, so you're going to focus on this. So now you're absolutely right. What you said, if they're not rich, if they're not this or that, then nobody's listening to them, and that's a disservice. I mean, it's unfortunate. I hope we get away from it because success is the whole pie. It's not just money.
Yeah.
It's peace, it's family, it's
Complete
friendship, it's
balance.
health, right? It's having stability, right? And what's being presented is, oh well, this guy is rich, so he must be right, or this lady is rich and she has a certain figure, so she must be right. And we're just kind of following that. And so then what happens, is there any wonder that people feel the way they feel when they're on social media and they come off? And if you look at a lot of the studies, a lot of the people that are more affluent aren't having their children on social media. They're getting their kids more into playing with blocks and reading and more, tangible things because of what it's doing to the children.
It's funny that you mentioned that because we were talking to another person a couple of days ago, and he was mentioning like a lot of the tech company moguls in Silicon Valley. Their kids are not into like
They don't see screens and
yeah, they're
stuff.
not
Yeah.
on the screen all day long on the iPad. That's
Right.
and their schools look a little different, and
Yep.
so that's
Yep. They're
something to
changing their
keep in
schools
mind.
to look more like how schools were when we were kids, where they're playing with blocks and they're doing. It's not all this. There's nothing wrong with technology, right? Like, technology is great for what it's great for,
Yeah.
but the you know we're being inundated with so many things, and it's what's being done to the kids with certain technology. And so, yeah, I mean, kids don't know how to talk to each other anymore. They don't know how to socialize. I mean, like, socialization is one of the biggest issues that teachers are seeing with kids right now, because you had kids that were in the second grade when COVID hit, and they've been out of school for almost 2 years. Some of them haven't gone back to full programming. And so now you have a second grader that's in a fourth grade class, but still has a second grade mind.
Mm.
And they weren't around people for 2 years. I mean, that's like being in solitary confinement. Now you're not around anybody but your parents, and you can't go anywhere for a long period of time. So think about the kids that aren't playing football like they used to, or basketball, or running outside. Think about the health issues they're going to have. The studies coming out about the COVID 15 or 20 or whatever it is, where people have like gained massive amounts of weight because they weren't moving. They were sitting at home, and then they're just watching TV and eating all the time and eating unhealthy food. And that's got to you.
That's me too.
I mean,
Yeah.
so, but what it did
So
to the
we
kids, yeah,
understand.
man, it's interesting.
Their
Very interesting.
communication skills get affected because they're not
Yep.
talking to people
They're not
at
talking to
school.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not talking. I mean, we had kids that would come to camp that were shaking because they hadn't been around people in so
Mm.
long, and they were concerned that they were going to
Mm,
get COVID when they were around people. I mean, they were shaking, petrified
wow.
to come and be around people. Yeah.
Wow.
Psychological trauma.
Yeah.
Yep.
Probably social anxiety too, just from being
A lot of
around
that.
people.
Yep.
It's gonna be a lot of psychological problems that comes.
Loud noises.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So
Yeah.
with cryptocurrency,
Hmm.
they say it's going to basically, be one of the biggest, it's going to be one of the, let's say, wealth gaps, or it's going to kind of pull
Sure.
together. My word is
I
not even there.
guess
It's going to feel one of the,
balance
yeah,
the what do they call it? The biggest wealth
it's close the
transfer.
wealth gap. That's what I was looking for.
Hmm.
For, I guess, a lot of people, or a large community of people.
Hmm.
Are you into cryptocurrency, or you?
I'm learning more about it. Yeah.
Okay. So some people find the importance of it, and some people are kind of slow to get into it.
Sure.
What do you think, as far as even trying, like, for my own family,
Hmm.
it's hard to kind of introduce it to them. Have you
Sure.
tried introducing it to someone, and what are some of the reactions, or what do you think the perspective of certain people have on getting into it, or the future of cryptocurrency, or even with kids and their
I think
future?
I think that people fear anything that they don't understand, and so their first reaction is to kind of shun it, or push it away. But you can look around and see that it's not going anywhere. So the whole thing is to figure out how to take advantage of it, learn it at whatever level you can learn it, and make it work for you. The now one thing that that we know about anything is that there's going to be people that are going to make money off of it, right, and going to become successful, and there's going to be people that won't, and that are going to lose money. But that's in anything.
Right.
That's in any business industry. That's in any. I mean, everybody didn't make money on making soda pop, right? But Coca-Cola done made a whole lot of money, and a whole lot of other people that invested in it made a lot of money, right?
Mhm.
So it's I think that is something that um, if you're smart, you'll learn about it and be knowledgeable about it, because you can see where it's making changes. I mean, just on Cash App now, you can pay with
Yeah,
cryptocurrency,
with
right?
Bitcoin.
Or you could with Bitcoin, right? Or you could pay with um, stock, right? The NFT. I mean, you look at what's going on with Meta and just the whole metaverse and real estate and the metaverse, right? I mean, there are people that are going to make a lot of money on that, but there are still people that are going to make money on recycling cardboard. I mean, it's whatever you're into. Like, if that's your thing, do it, and and make it happen. I think that it's a great thing that people are coming up with different ways to make money, and just the it just goes to the power of the mind and what's possible. That at a time where we didn't think there would ever be a different kind of currency, there is different currency out here. That I could take a picture of something and be like, hey, this right here is worth $1,000, and people will buy it. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that that's great. I think it creates opportunities for people that want to enterprise and make a difference in their life, and there's nothing wrong with that. And the people that are like, I'm not going to pay attention to it, it's going to be dead and go away, woe unto them. That's not, you got to pay attention. You can't turn a blind eye to it, because it's here.
Yeah. You mentioned the metaverse.
Yeah,
Do you? Of course, I already know there's going to be some negatives dealing with people, or period, just from screen addiction to metaverse to
sure.
just the whole, even the psychological
Yeah.
thing with kids having been around. How do you see that working out,
But
or
metaverse?
finding a balance, but from, say, the kids that we have now
Yeah,
who have the anxiety, or the haven't been around
yeah,
people, or and they might find a comfort in VR or
yeah.
metaverse,
Sure, sure.
and screen addiction also in that little pocket,
Yeah,
along with the possible of what the future could look like. That is that a
right,
disaster thing? Or of course it's going to be whatever it's going to be, but how do
right.
you see that either being negative or being a
Or positive.
positive for the traumatized, the psychologically shaken up
Um,
kids going into that?
I think the question that we really got to look at with that is, it all comes down to how our parents are going to control their kids when they're doing it, right? It all falls down on the parents. I mean, it's going to be, of course, it's going to be positives and negatives to it,
Yeah.
right? Now, of course, the positives with a lot of social media is you think of the people that you would not have talked to or seen if there wasn't social media. Friends that you know from years back when you were a kid, like, oh man, that's so and so or whatever, like all the positives that come out of it. And then, of course, with any positive things, there's going to be negative
Yeah.
aspects to it, right? I mean, that just comes with it, right?
Right.
You take the good with the bad or whatever. But I think that there's going to be amazing breakthroughs that are going to come through it. I think that there's going to be really cool things that people will be able to do, and it's like doing too much of anything. You do too much of it, it's not going to be good for you. But I think that there are going to be a lot of people. For example, you think about the kid that has so much social anxiety, they're afraid to go outside, or the kid that doesn't feel they're not good at just gelling with people. But all of a sudden, this kid can like recreate themselves and be somebody else that they want to be, and now all of a sudden they're happy and they're joyous and they're winning in this lane.
And they
I
can
don't
make
think there's
money.
and they can make money at it, right? The one
Yeah.
that can make money at it, like, man, this is what I was born to do, right? That kid, I think it's great for them. I think it's great
Yeah.
for them, and why should we take that away from somebody that has that kind of epiphany in their life, right? Anything that's going to keep, I mean, man, suicide and all that is a huge thing going on with young kids right now. And so anything that we can do to keep kids from feeling that way about themselves and to be positive and to move and be productive, man, we want to support that. Right. And
Definitely.
be able to see what negatives are coming and be able to stop those things. But I think overall, man, I think it's going to be great. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing what it's like, I mean, but I'm not going to be on there every day, all the time. I got things to
Understand.
do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I feel like
But when you're on there, it's good.
Yeah. But I like your view on it, helping those
Yeah.
kids in that, in particular mindset.
Yeah.
If you are antisocial like that, or you don't want to go into the work system, it does provide a possible future for you to find
Sure.
somewhere to work and become a character, or,
Yeah.
interact with people.
That's
yeah,
gonna be
it's
wild. Hey, you see somebody, you be like, man, I never thought you would look like that in the VR, man. Like, like,
I think
like,
everybody's focusing on the negative when it comes to like metaverse and VR
yeah,
world.
yeah,
Everybody's just go straight into the Black Mirror,
yeah,
Yeah.
scenario and
yeah,
all of that.
yeah,
And I mean, they were doing the same thing when the internet back in the 90s, right? So just because there's, you know, dark web and like Pornhub and things or whatever you can
right,
do with the
right.
internet, that doesn't mean the internet is not useful and helping a lot of businesses and corporations make money and individuals, and it it helps everyone. So it's just like that. Any technology can be used for good and bad, and I
Absolutely.
think we just have to figure out how to moderate it. But right now, it's just Facebook being on the forefront of this
Yeah.
metaverse
Yeah,
thing, which is not the case, and people don't understand there's a difference between the metaverse and Meta, whatever
Yeah.
yeah,
Facebook the company is,
yeah.
because metaverse is really blockchain and all of that technology, which is a very transparent thing, and
Hmm.
Facebook is the complete opposite of that, or Meta, whatever the company is. And
Right.
it's like they came in at a time when it's getting popular to
Yeah, they
kind of
timed it right.
muddy up the waters a little bit and get
Yeah,
people not realizing there's a lot more to that. I actually don't have to put on a VR glass to be in Sandbox or Decentraland,
right,
and I can use it moderately and like control myself just like I would with video games. There's people that
right,
make money with
Yeah.
doing video games, but can also control their urges and all of that. I think
right.
those, yeah.
I mean, I wish I could be on a video game for like 5, 6 hours right now. Man, I was playing. What was I playing? I was playing Call of Duty one day, and
Mm,
I was like, "Yo!" Like I'm like, man, this is so much fun. And for me, it took my mind off of everything else I was thinking about. Right? Like,
Yeah.
and I'm a grown man, right? And I'm like having a ball. And it's like when I got finished playing, I was like, man, I felt so much better. Like I was relaxed. It was almost like getting a nap
mm,
because your mind is off of it. And
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, man, you got to do what works for you now, man. People are always going to have something to say about what you're doing and what you're trying to make happen. But like I heard somebody say one day, he said, man, he ain't no Bible, right? Like what they say is not like law, right?
yeah,
People can, man, at a point in your life where you're seeing the cracks and issues with so many things out here. When you find a place where you're having some happiness and some joy, at the end of the day, what we want more than anything is happiness, right?
Yeah.
If you could be happy, and you could be happy every single day of your life, right, for the rest of your life, or you could be rich every single day the rest of your life, which would you choose? Now, a lot of times we want to say, well, I'll be rich because that's going to make me happy, but that's not necessarily true. Right? We see that time and time
Mhm.
again. How many millionaires and people are jumping off of bridges and killing themselves? Got plenty of money. What are you killing yourself for? Right? You think of somebody like Robin Williams, like one of the greatest comedians of all time. This
yeah,
man was dealing with crazy depression.
Right.
Right. And these people, they thought he was the funniest dude ever. He spent so much time making people laugh and he was great at it. And it's like, man, he's gone because he was dealing with all this stuff. And he was wealthy his whole life. I mean,
Mhm.
yeah,
he was raised with money. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's like, man, when you realize that you can be happy and you start following happiness as opposed to following what everybody else is telling you to do, you really stop caring about what other people think.
Yeah. You do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you really do. You be like, all right, I feel you. I'm over here though.
But before we get ready to close it out,
Yeah.
anything you'd like to let the audience know?
Um, man, really, I think it's just that, man. I think it's choose to be happy. Man, choose to be happy, man.
I agree
Choose to
with
be
that.
happy every day you wake up, man. And that's something I want to make sure I do every day, man. Just every day you wake up, man, make a conscious choice to be happy, and that you're not gonna let nobody take that away from you, regardless of whether you got $1 million or you got $1. Because we can all remember times when we had like $1, but man, it was like, but you had a good time. You know
If
what I
not
mean?
a
Like
negative,
regardless. Right, right, right.
negative.
Yeah, negative, man, but have a good time, man. Choose to be happy.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Any let them know your links and where they can follow you at and everything like that.
Hey, on social media, you follow me at SF Dreams Big. That's where I talk about a lot of stuff for our programs and what we got going on with the magazine and the orphanage and Camp Warrior King. You can have it all. To get connected with You Can Have It All, or to help support the orphanage, you go to ychiamag.com, or just look up You Can Have It All magazine.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So, and for the podcast, you can find us at AmericanGypsy.com. You'll find links to our merchandise at Luam Lee and Patreon. And also, all of these podcasts have a video on American Gypsy YouTube. So make sure you go subscribe, get the videos.
Also, you can check out some music if you like at Classic, Klaccik, Carpenter, Carpenta.
And you
That's on
don't have to
Spotify.
try to remember all of this is actually
Yeah.
on the website. Go to AmericanGypsy.com and you can go to the host and you'll find the music information and all of that.
Shaun, it's been a great conversation, man. I
Thank you so
really,
much. I
really
appreciate it.
enjoyed this, man.
Definitely.
I enjoyed
And
it. I enjoyed talking with y'all,
I
man. We
wanted
got to
to
do it
ask a
again.
little more about the neighborhood of where they moved the stadium from. Was it Turnerfield? But
Yeah.
we always invite everybody back. So
Uh-huh.
we definitely gonna set up something in the future and have another
Let's do it.
conversation, man. We got to have
Yeah,
a
because they
conversation
sure
again.
did. They moved it out to out there
Cobb
in
County.
Smyrna. Yeah,
Yeah.
moved it out to Cobb County, man, and impacted a whole lot of people when they did that. The good thing is that Georgia State got it now, and they're
Okay.
building it back up. So hopefully they'll help out the people in the community. But but the community looks a little different now. and
Yeah, I
then
understand
they
that.
say, you know how that goes.
Yeah. So we look forward to discussing that on the next go round, man. And
Let's
stay
do it.
blessed. Hope all is, perfect over there.
Absolutely.
And consistent self-improvement to everybody listening. Thank you again for listening to American Gypsy Podcast, and
Peace.
peace.